Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where passion meets possibility. Here's your host, Meredith Calloway.
Hello, and welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast. Today's episode, I have Kerry Mooneyham of Midwest Travel Solutions. And we're going to be talking about the South Pacific. We're going to be talking about when it's time to bring someone on to help you in your business. And we're going to talk about another inspired journey of travel entrepreneurship. So welcome to the episode. Kerry, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm pretty excited. It's going to be a great episode.
Yes, very exciting to have you. So you are relatively new to GTN. You joined us last year. Tell me a little bit about your journey of joining travel entrepreneurship. What inspired you to become a travel advisor? When did you start your business? And yes, I just want to know all about the beginning phase.
So I have 25 years as a litigation paralegal, which you would think, what could that possibly have in common with travel? A lot of the core skills, research, as a paralegal, I didn't do legal research. I did research into whatever the case had to do with. If that was the manufacturing process of a plastic fence or a coal plant or a saw. So I did a lot of broad-based research. And then we traveled. No place exciting. The standing joke was if there was a document to review to do in Hawaii, the attorney went. If those same documents were in Fargo, North Dakota, the paralegal went. So, but part of my job was, going in before the trial, meeting with the court, setting up war rooms, all the hotel accommodations, conference rooms, and doing all that for the whole team. And one day my senior partner came to me and she said, "Kerry, I think I'm going to retire." And I got to thinking, did I really want to start over with a baby attorney? And the answer was no. So I went to my husband and I'm like, what do you think about me going into some sort of business? And he said, "All right, you may not get to retire as soon as you were going to if you're going to start all over again, but I'll take the heavy lifting for a couple of years." I was traveling a lot. I had picked up the most expensive hobby in the world, scuba diving, and was using a travel agent because I found, even though I was really good at researching, I was finding that they could do a better job than I could. So I spent probably about 18 months to 2 years just kind of researching, how to set up the business, doing the training, finding a good, company to work with. And that was almost 15 years ago.
Wow.
So
I love this story. And the reason why is because you represent one of the things that I love most about travel entrepreneurship is that this wanderlust, this insatiable desire to travel is going to be found in people in all professions. And
definitely.
So it just shows that it's much more about that. Do you have that in your DNA than what kind of experience you bring to the table? And I love, like you said, that you spent a career developing an ability to research anything. And that is so important for professionalizing this passion for travel. It is so important when you want to professionalize it because, there's, at first glance, people who are not drawn to this profession, people who are not who don't have that insatiable travel to desire. They have an interest to travel, but they're never going to be called to this profession. I think the outside onlooker like that will look at our profession and think, oh, it's just about being good at booking things and
Right.
knowing schedules and when to go.
Um, it's so
The
easy. You just go online and you
Yeah,
book it.
exactly. I mean, when I book my travel and I go online, but there is so much more to it. And you nailed it. A huge piece of it is the ability to research well and quickly and efficiently um and or save other people time because you've already done the research.
Right. I spend more hours um, in the legal world. It was called continuing legal education. Um,
Yeah.
but doing continuing education with suppliers and destinations, I definitely spend more time on that now just because it's always changing, it's always
Yeah.
evolving, always something new to learn.
I
And I
think
think
you
that's
just
certainly
mentioned
one of
that
the
thing.
appeals as a career. If you don't like
Yeah.
continued learning, this is not the career for you.
Right. Well, I think you just gave a phrase to something that we in this profession all do. We embrace completely the continuing education part. We love it. And if you don't love, traipsing through hotel after hotel after hotel, if that doesn't
Yeah.
then don't do it. But that is a huge part of the job. And I think you called it CLE, right? Continuing legal
Legal edge,
education.
right.
Well, we have CTE,
CTE. Yeah.
continuing travel education. I love it. That's a much better term for like a fam trip.
Yeah.
I'm taking a CTE, a continuing travel education experience. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so let's talk about you opened a travel agency in about 15 years ago. And now you've gotten to the point where you mostly specialize. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, from the Midwest, Mexico and the Caribbean is probably the bread and butter. That's probably the number one question I get, and so I still do Caribbean and Mexico. But all the requests I get for Europe and other places other than the South Pacific, um, I have my partner work on. Bringing her on a couple years ago really allowed me to spend more time in that CTE and a lot of my money. Everybody says, "Oh, you get to travel everywhere for free." No, I don't. Um,
Hmm.
I spend a good chunk of money going to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji. These are not necessarily really cheap places.
Right,
They are much more budget friendly than most people think.
right.
Um, I
But
think
the
one of
flight
my
alone, just getting there is costly.
bright lights was the day I was sitting on a plane um, to go to Tahiti, which was the first time I'd been past Hawaii in the South Pacific. And I really felt like it was unreal because I had a belief that only, stars and wealthy people could go to someplace like Tahiti, that like little old me, just normal person, couldn't possibly get on a plane and go to Tahiti. And I really think that was kind of like a watershed moment for me where, realizing travel is more about planning than having means.
Mhm.
There's still kind of like a three-legged stool where you have, time and budget and what you want to do, but you can move those pieces around um, to make things pretty much attainable for anybody that has a
Mhm.
desire to do something.
Yeah. So first question for someone listening who might be at a similar crossroads in their career that you were at 15 years ago, if they are thinking of taking this leap, what tip or advice do you have for them that would possibly save a mistake that you made, not make, made? Tell them.
Probably was late getting some systems and processes in place, because you start and you're not as busy. You're spending a lot
Mhm.
more time learning than you are actually selling travel. It's definitely not overnight success. I didn't start and next year was selling $1 million. That's not the way
Nope.
it worked. Um,
Nope.
every year I could look at my numbers and say, that was better. That was an improvement.
Mhm.
But I think like that first year, if I made $1.26 an hour, that was probably being generous.
Right.
Um, but I think at some point you get busy and then you kind of are like, okay, this is the way I've done it. And I probably should have gone out a little earlier and looked at some other tools that were out there that would help me do my job better. And I think
Mhm.
even now there's more tools that there were back then. For me, Travel Joy was a game changer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love that.
Yeah.
And it made my life so much easier. And so I think just, looking at, what really is a best practice,
Yeah.
sooner rather than later will
Yeah.
make your life easier.
Which is what you're talking about is the third piece, the third component of what I call our far from average action plan. That is what is really the heart and soul, the nuts and bolts of running a business selling travel, and addresses the blind spots, the three biggest blind spots most travel advisors make, and what keeps them stuck in what I call that accidental hobbyist syndrome.
Mhm.
The first step is, or the first component is, figure out how to monetize the business. You got to be focused on how you're going to monetize it. Otherwise, you will be perpetually stuck in this, never able to grow your revenues faster than your expenses. Like you said, there are significant expenses running a travel business if you are doing the CTE part, and you should be doing the CTE part. Um, the average travel advisor in 2023 generated $52,000 in revenue. Um, that's break even, in my opinion, because your operating expenses before you pay yourself are going to be in the $25,000 range. And that's not including your travel budget. You should be spending $25,000 on travel. Um, and so, that's break even. The second blind spot is like e establishing a client attraction system, basically. And then the third blind spot is what you just said, is not scaling for growth, and the way to scale for growth is to outsource, to delegate, or hire. But the third one, massive important piece, is um, establishing systems and procedures and using the tools to do that, but using all the tools that we have to do that. So, um, yeah, but you, I have to compliment you because you have gotten past that phase, the accidental hobbyist phase, on your own. You have, and or have you? It from my observation, you found us last year, where you all already passed that phase, and I compliment you for that because very few people do it on their own. Um, and, they wake up in accidental hobbyist phase and they come to us for the coaching to get us past that. Um, so I think one of the things that you did that was really, really pivotal was bringing on a partner, because
Yeah.
you're able to continue to help the clients that maybe went to Australia and now are like, okay, Kerry, I can't do Australia again. It's just, I don't have enough vacation days.
When everybody asks me, I'm like, oh, you should totally go to Australia. Oh, you want to go to Ireland? Well, okay. Yeah. We can do that.
And now you can help them. So, was that something that you were very strategic about? Did it fall in your lap? Did someone fall in your lap?
So I probably knew I wanted to do it um, for at least 2 years
Mhm.
before I really met the right person.
Yeah.
And I do think that there has to be, an alignment of personalities, an alignment of styles.
Mhm.
And you can't just bring on a body. Um,
Mhm.
I think owning a business as personal as a travel agent is, um, clients tell us very, very personal things, and they're trusting us with truly one of the most important things in their life. Most people get 2, 3, 4 weeks vacation a year. And if they're trusting us to
Mhm.
plan 2 weeks with their extended family, to say it's once in a lifetime, maybe not every trip is, but that may be the only time that year that they're going to, get to spend with their cousins or their siblings or their grandparents. I did a 50th anniversary in lieu of a party. This client wanted to take his extended family to Australia. It was a blast, making sure that the younger people, had things that they were really passionate and interested in, as well as the people that ended up paying for the trip for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but that was a very special thing for their family. Um, and to not understand that that's a trust placed in us. And so I
Yeah.
think if you bring on anybody, you really need to trust them, that they will value the relationship they have with the agency clients as much as you do.
Yeah. I totally agree. And what's coming clear to me is that you have followed your heart in this career, not your head. And that
Uh, Definitely.
I
Um,
love, and so again, I applaud you because there are people that come to this business and they're following your head and they become very transactional. And that's not how you have long-term success. When you follow your heart, you're going to have you're going to be much more focused on the relationship. And it's going to be much more of a long-term thing. And so what I'm hearing from you is that what you love is helping people have an experience that is well beyond what they could do themselves. And so getting them to make a much better decision with their travel dollars and hours that they're spending.
right. Time is the one thing that everybody has a limited amount of.
Hmm.
Um, So you don't always get a do-over. And I think travel can be literally life-changing, from seeing again, this was before I was a travel agent. I have two daughters, both of them very bright. The youngest, I just don't think she ever understood she was. Didn't have the easiest teenage time, kind of like me. And literally, was dating a bum, had dropped out of high school, went back, got her CNA, went back and got her CNA, then went back and got her LPN. And it's kind of a celebration. We went to Jamaica. Me, my husband, her and her boyfriend had a great time. I think we got back on Friday. Sunday morning, she walks into the house and she just looks like the dog died. And I'm like, what's wrong? She goes, oh, I just have to break up with Twan. And I'm thinking, yay! But why? Um, because there was no fights. As I said, it was an excellent trip. And she goes, I just see we do not want the same things of life. And it literally was, that trip to Jamaica. She met other people, and really saw that what she wanted for her life was more than she was doing. And has since gone back and has her master's degree. And after dumping that bum, found a lovely guy. They got married and they have 2 beautiful kids. And
Wow.
literally I can trace that story back to a travel moment.
Right.
It
Or an
really it
experience.
can be life changing.
It's your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether that's, getting out and meeting a culture you've never seen before,
Yeah.
or experiencing Antarctica. This
Yeah.
is a place that is so, so wild. It changes your perspective.
Yeah.
And I think
Because
that,
she
yeah,
probably saw him in that environment and he didn't hold the same reverence for things that she did. And it was very obvious to her when you take people outside of their environment.
environment.
Yeah. You
I
really
always say
see them.
travel should make you a little uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Not uncomfortable to the point that you're
Yeah.
not enjoying yourself, but it
Right.
should put you a little bit out of the box. You're doing something
Hmm.
new. You're doing something different.
Hmm.
And I think that's good for personal growth.
And when it is a little bit of uncomfortable, it's almost always the most memorable. What is your why ultimately in for your business? That book Start with Why by Simon Sinek.
Right.
He talks what he talks about in that book. I mean, I read it so long ago, but what I do remember is that corporations should start with why is really what he's saying. And most people who work for a big company know what that company does. Some of them will know how they do what they do, but very few of them will ultimately know why they do what they do. And he believes it should be the other way around. Everyone should know why you do what you do. Um, and and I think it's really important to as a business owner to really anchor back in on that on a daily basis. What is your why?
I mean, I think having the ability to educate people, which, if they're going online and booking something, if they're going to a, marine park in Hawaii, an online booking engine is not going to tell them that you need to bring reef safe sunscreen with you. Why is that important? I like explaining that. I like educating people on, the nuances. Maybe somebody has a budget in mind. Well, being able to educate them on, what they can do with that budget. There are so many options out there. And I just think that is something that's very important because, again, I believe anybody can achieve any travel dream they want if they plan for it. Maybe you're not going tomorrow, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after. And just being able to really educate somebody on the different options out there so they have the best experience. Um, it is what I absolutely love to do.
So let's talk about your passion for the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, and those islands all around. Um, when did you kind of fall in love with that part of the world?
So I read an article, maybe 8, um, talking about this place in Australia where the dolphins would come in to visit people every day. And I just thought that must be the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I've always felt a pull to Australia. Um,
Mm.
and growing up, I was a single parent. You know, we went to Yellowstone and
Mhm.
Maine, and those were
Mhm.
big trips for us.
Mhm.
Um, so it wasn't like I had an opportunity, but I would read anything I could get my hands on. I don't want to tell you how many times I watched Quigley Down Under. Um, so it just was a pull that I really never understood. Um, and turns out my grandfather is Australian. He was from Australia. Um,
Wow.
I was
And you
adopted.
didn't know that?
I had no idea. Um, my
Wow.
lovely daughter did a DNA test. And about 2 years ago, my sister contacted her and said, "Hey, uh, tell me about your mom."
Wow.
And so I have since been able to meet my mom,
What
and
an
she has
amazing
told
story.
me the story. Um, my sister um, is a flight attendant,
Wow.
so I know there's that whole nurture nature.
And
But
her father, your mother's father, was from Australia?
yeah, yeah,
That
um,
is wow.
yeah. Um,
Wow.
and I always used to think, like, I felt like maybe I should have been, like, heir to something. Turns out he had, like, a growing company. His name was Percy Abbott, and he was really big into the magic, and he had, like, factories, all over the world. Apparently, there was also, like, a magic trick that went bad, and, like, somebody got hurt, and they got sued, and, it didn't turn out so great, but I was like, "Yep, see, there could have been that fortune." Um, and he was born on my birthday. 80
Oh
years
my
earlier,
god.
but the same date. Um,
That's insane.
so
Wow.
it was just funny to find that connection. Um, I actually have all sorts of relatives from Australia.
Wow.
Um, and I grew up on the beach in California. Um, Never went snorkeling. I mean, we went to the beach all the time. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I discovered snorkeling and diving.
Right.
So, um, but that's certainly, the islands. It's just I'm a water
Did
geek.
you discover that before you ever went to Australia, or it was not till long
I
after
did.
you
I did.
okay.
Yeah. So it was before I was married. So it was over 20 years ago. We were still
Okay.
dating.
Yeah.
My husband had a conference in um, Florida, Ritz-Carlton, Key Biscayne. And he was in conference all day and found out you could take a day cruise to the Bahamas. I brought my daughter with me. And so we, got on the boat. We were the last people on the boat for whatever reason. And I'm just staring at the water. I'm like, I grew up on the beach. Our water did not look like this. Um, and I think that's kind of when I discovered the tropical water that's way different than Southern California. Just the
Mhm.
visibility,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the snorkeling and then the
So that
diving
you
and
learned how to snorkel then, and then you progressed
yeah,
to scuba diving and
yeah. The first time we went snorkeling, went by one of those I think divers den in Florida and bought a pair of fairly expensive fins, mask, and snorkel, and I kind of was like, felt guilty, like, "Oh, this was a stupid impulse buy. When will I ever use this stuff?" I literally wore those fins out. I mean, wore
yeah.
them until they were, I just had, which I got exactly the same thing. But yeah, it was like, when am I ever going to do this again? Turns out a lot.
A lot. What is it about snorkeling and diving that you love? I mean, I have like a whole theory on the symbolism of it, but I'm curious what you love about it.
Um, a couple things. I mean, I think the piece, the way the sound is different. It certainly gives you a perspective of the world, I think, where you sense things a little differently. Um, and I've done it enough that I like to watch. I know people don't think, fish are smart at all, but it's amazing. You start watching that they're little worlds, and
Mhm.
it can teach you stuff. It's always exciting to see something, big. But sometimes you just watch the little things. It
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
just so fascinating, and to learn from them, and to see the patterns. And I've always liked everything nature. Um,
Mhm.
but I think just having, whether it's walking in a forest or underwater, it's the second, and there should be a word for it. I've kind of been like, trying to think of a word, but wherever you are in nature, something unusual happens.
Yeah.
And right there in that second, that is like a gift to you that nobody else on the planet is getting.
Mhm.
I was actually, in Australia. I tend to get up early. I was sitting on my balcony before sunrise, drinking a cup of coffee, and just like off the side, I just like movement, and I turn, and there is this stunning owl sitting like
Oh,
2.5 feet next to me. And it just, you just take moments like that. And
yeah.
it was just me and him, and the rest of the world didn't matter. And I think
Yeah.
underwater, that happens. The first time I saw the spotted eagle rays, there was three of them
Yeah.
with those long tails, and I think I almost drowned because I was so excited. Like they were like right there. It is just a gift to you in that second, and you never
Yeah.
know when nature is going to give that to you. And
Yeah.
you're not going to find it at a shopping mall.
No, you're not gonna find it at a shopping mall. You gotta put yourself in the place to be receiving of it.
Yeah.
What I love about snorkeling, I don't scuba dive. I probably should get my certification, but I haven't yet. But what I love about snorkeling is, you can be on the above the surface of the water, and it can be, choppy,
Coffee.
and it could be raining outside, and
Uh-huh.
not very comfortable and not very enjoyable, and you just go under, and it's like immediate peace, and a whole 'nother world is going
Mhm.
on that you can't even see unless you go below the surface. And
Yeah.
so, like, I think it's so symbolic to life, you know, um, when things are really chaotic and uncomfortable in your life in general, the importance of developing that muscle to be able to just go inward, and go under the surface when the
That's good. I love that analogy.
right? The surface of the water is smacking you in the face. What happened if you just go under?
Under.
Look
Yeah.
how powerful that is and what a difference it can make, and ride out the storm. A better way to ride out the storm. So what is your favorite request these days for travel?
Um, I really do like the multi-gen celebrations.
Mm,
Um, it's
yeah,
it's a little bit more of a challenge, um, because you have, different age groups that, what someone that's, 65 or 70 might think is awesome, a 22-year-old might not.
Yeah.
And so it's putting that trip together that it really has something for everybody. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that is certainly a lot of fun. Um,
I love what you shared with me in an email, um, that the one that you were talking about earlier, I think the the father had mentioned that they used to do road trips
mm,
and then organized for them to rent not one but multiple RVs
RV. Yeah.
in Australia and
Yeah.
drive as like a multi-gen family in a couple of RVs. What did you call it? The Pacific Highway or something? That's in California.
Great Ocean Road.
The Great Ocean Road. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
more Australian. Um, but how amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I just love the sound of that. And I remember now thinking about it that there is a virtuoso partner now that is a RV provider. So we can be booking RV travel through a virtuoso partner. I don't know if you saw that. It was very
I
recent.
actually I did not. I'll have to take a
Yeah.
look.
There's a new virtuoso partner that's what they do is they put people in RVs while they're traveling and like super nice RVs, like the ones that celebrities get when they're doing their, the rock stars when they're doing their road shows. Um,
I did New Zealand, in an RV, um,
yeah.
and it was
Wow.
fabulous. I do think that
Oh,
it's a great way to see, some parts of the world.
I
There's a
agree.
trade-off. You're driving, um,
Yeah.
and you certainly, when you're on the other side of the road, um you need to concentrate on what you're doing. But even when I'm planning, even if it's not an RV, even if it's a car, if I'm planning a self drive, for somebody, I really keep the driving hours minimum. And I explain to them up front, like, you're in a strange country, you're driving on the other side of the road. I don't ever want you tired,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and most people, "Oh, we're not going to drive 16 hours in a day." I've
Yeah.
certainly done that here. I try not to do that anymore, but sometimes it happens. We just got back from I took the grandkids 2 and 5 on a road trip. We did Phoenix and Flagstaff and the Grand Canyon and Palm
Neat.
Springs in California. Um, and it is it's a fun way to have family time together.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to decide how old they have to be to go to Australia. Um,
Yeah.
it's
When can
definitely
they
in their
handle
future.
basically, when can they handle the flight?
Um, we took Easton, the youngest, on his first trip at 3 months because we just wanted to see if he was a good traveler. So we hopped a plane out to California. So, I said for 2 and 5, they are good 4 to 6 hours at a time.
Yeah.
We've taken them to Roatan, Honduras.
Mm.
Um, I don't buy presents for them. I don't buy
Oh, I
presents for
love that.
anybody in my family. Um, we
We travel.
we travel.
I love that. I absolutely adore that, and I love that you're not, not only did you influence your children, you're now influencing your grandkids and your children as parents to get their kids traveling as soon as they are born.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, put them on a plane as infants and they will be much better
Yeah.
flyers the rest of their lives. Get them used to it. I love that. So in closing, the question that I love to end with is about um for me it's giving a platform to the fact that when you follow this entrepreneurial journey and professionalize a passion for travel. And you really do it like I said, you're doing it. You do it because you're following your heart, not your head. I believe that you ultimately not only build yourself a successful career, but you build a life that you love. Um, and would you say that you get to live a life that you love thanks to finding a career that you were able to root in your passion for travel?
Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying that I work, fewer hours. As a law firm, when we
Wow.
were getting ready for
Mhm,
trial, 20 hours was not unusual because you had
mhm.
the trial day and then you had that morning and that night. I can remember telling, my boss at, 2:15 in the morning, stop making changes. We have to be back, in um and
Right,
so during the busy season, it's not unusual for me to work a 16-hour day,
right.
if I have something, that needs to be done. Um, but I also, will stop in the middle of the day and go catch a half-hour production, at the preschool. If I
Oh,
was
and
still working downtown, that would have been much harder to do.
oh,
And
yeah.
we actually moved. We did live 50 minutes away, same city. It just wasn't as convenient. We moved 3 minutes from the grandkids, to kind of
Love
allow us that kind of connection. And having a job that is flexible, certainly does, allow me to spend those moments that I wouldn't be able to spend otherwise. And probably, you know, take them on trips maybe a little bit more than I would. Um,
Absolutely. You get access to things that it's not free, and that's not the reason to get into this business. But you
no,
do get to take your family on vacations that you probably would not
sure.
take if you were not doing this as a career.
Right. Yeah, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a
No,
full-time gig. Um, it
it's
is it is a
it's not a
career.
marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon is what we say
Mhm.
all the time.
Yeah. But
Um,
it does give you opportunities that you might not otherwise
mhm,
have or nowhere out there.
yeah, absolutely. So the final question that I love to end with is, as a benefit of being in the industry, we get to experience travel that just like we're saying, that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise experience. So, can you think of a pinch me, oh my god, I can't believe I get to do this moment that you've had in your career?
So Antarctica. I mean,
Mm,
the expedition
wow.
cruise product is just, um, I think, unbeatable on so many levels. And I think a lot of times people hear cruise and they kind of, oh, well, maybe I'm not a
Yeah,
cruise person. But an expedition cruise is not about that. It is
yeah.
about the destination. And I'd actually done some research, because I had somebody that wanted to go to Antarctica. And I'd told one of my friends, and then she had a friend mention Antarctica, and she said, "Oh, you need to meet my friend." And so I did, and we talked more about Antarctica. And I booked her, and then she talked my friend into going, and then my friend's like, "Oh, please, please, please come with us." It was literally not on my list right there. I actually had a couple things in front of it, but I was like, okay, well, I'm not very good at saying no to travel. And it was just an experience that you don't understand what it's like
Yeah,
to sit in a kayak surrounded by ice and quiet,
yeah,
um, nowhere else on earth. And that, you know,
absolutely.
is only something you're going to get through travel.
And let's plug, who did you sail on?
Aurora Expeditions, um,
Yeah.
absolutely loved them. Um, the staff was just fabulous. They
Mhm.
had some people that they were on the ski team, and we'd stop and they'd go out and ski. I was with the kayak people. And then we do, the Zodiac expeditions. The fresh cookies every afternoon and hot chocolate
Oh,
machine did not
oh
hurt.
my gosh.
But I will say that we had enough exercise going on. I came back without gaining any weight, and literally I was having cookies every afternoon and dessert after dinner, which was
Wow.
fabulous. I know. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah. How often can you go on vacation and do that?
I know, especially when you're indulging. I mean, it's not like you
Yeah,
didn't indulge.
yeah.
So, thank you so much. This has been amazing. If anybody wants to get a hold of you because they want your help in planning their next vacation, how can someone get a hold of you?
Um, you can Google my name, Kerry Mooneyham, or Midwest Travel Solutions. I am very fortunate that for some reason that there's no other Kerry Mooneyhams out there, and I own like the first 3 pages. I also am on Virtuoso. Yep,
Perfect.
it's pretty easy to get a hold of me. I'll meet somebody and their name's like John, and it doesn't even have to be like, it could be like a John, very special name, and there's like, 16 of them.
Kerry is Kerry for those of
Yeah,
you that
and
are
I think
listening.
that's probably why, is
Yes.
because, which is Irish. And
Uh-huh.
if you look at a dictionary, I was not amused to find this growing up. It's an Irish cow, also an Irish county. I was like, Mom, why did you do that to me? That's like awful. I always wanted to be Kelly or Catherine, but now it's worked out.
It has. It's worked out great. Well, thank you so much for joining today. It's been fascinating, and congratulations on carving out a life that you get to do what you love, and you get to live the life that you love and have the flexibility of um, putting all your priorities first. Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for listening to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast, where we dive deep into the exciting world of travel entrepreneurship. If you're looking for more, we have some great resources for both aspiring travel entrepreneurs and existing travel advisors. Aspiring travel entrepreneurs, if you're thinking about turning your love for travel into a profitable business and enviable life, take our Travel Entrepreneurial Suitability Score quiz. It's fun and insightful. Just go to travelmba.giftedtravelnetwork.com. Find out if you're ready to professionalize your passion for travel. Current travel advisors. If you've been selling travel but haven't been able to grow your sales beyond $200,000 in a 12-month window of time, our quiz can help there too. Again, you can find that at travelmba.giftedtravelnetwork.com. Advisors looking for a change. If you're seeking an elevated hosting experience for the luxury travel advisor, check us out at giftedtravelnetwork.com. We'd love to chat with you. And with that, we wrap up today's journey. We hope we inspired you today, or at a minimum, put a smile on your face.